and then they migrated to Pakistan before division of India in Lahore. Through dint of hard work and untiring efforts, in 1965, they raised the largest steel engineering company in Pakistan. And then on 2nd January 1972, it was nationalized. And there was nothing in their hand to be busy about. Yet, my father and his brothers never lost hope. And they stood up and accepted the challenge. And in the very same government regime, in 18 months, they raised 6 new small factories to avoid further nationalization. Guinness Bank was their banker. They said, come to England, we will give you a lot of opportunities. My father said, no, I was born here and I'll die here. Now, what is the moral of the story? That wherever there's a will, there's a way. So we are facing these problems, these challenges, but I think global North has to appreciate that global South will survive, then they will survive, and vice versa. We have taken over the reign of the country again after 8th of February this year, and I am now determined, in terms of the example I've just given you, to put things in order. Easier said than done. For example, our power sector is in shambles. I'm being very honest with you. Power theft in a massive fashion, and elitist culture, doles out and hands out being given to those who don't deserve it. Our revenue sector in tatters. What we receive annually, we lose at least 4 times that amount through leakages. And unless we plug these loopholes, we'll never be able to recover from these devastating impacts out of actions of our own, nobody else's. Let me be very clear. And then there is also a problem of inflation and debt trap. I call it death trap. Now, all this put together is a big challenge. I have to acknowledge from the core of my heart the support we have been given and received from Saudi leadership. I think a friend in need is a friend indeed, and we will never be able to repay back to them what they've done to Pakistan in difficult times. My friend, under his watch, DFID has been outstandingly supporting Pakistan in education and health. But the point at issue is that we have to stand on our own feet. Yes. And I know this is possible, difficult, but not impossible. And how? That is the point at issue. We are now going for massive reforms, deep-rooted structural reforms. It'll hit me as Prime Minister. Obviously, I have to provide leadership by example, ladies and gentlemen. Without that, nothing will happen. And then, of course, we have to go for austerity, meaningful austerity, just not for publicity. And 3, we have a very young population. And this young population, which go into hundreds of millions of boys and girls, is a challenge, yet a great opportunity. So we have to provide them with modern tools and technologies, information technology, AI, and other vocational training, to provide them with opportunities to become self-earners, SMEs. And then here in Saudi Arabia, they should come here and open offices and contribute in nation-building efforts here. In Pakistan, promote our agriculture through modern techniques, and of course, providing the farmer with best seeds and fertilizer. and of course modern tools. My dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, it's a humongous task. It's not an easy task. We have to go for higher exports. For that, we have to have opportunities made available to our exporters. We are a country. We don't have oil. We have gas, but it is on the lower trend, depleting. We have our biggest asset, natural resources, mines and minerals, fertile land, and of course, this youth, which is the biggest asset for Pakistan. And together, I'm not going into details over here, but before I came here, for example, in order to have deep-rooted structural changes, you have to separate black sheep from the white. And before I came here, for the first time in the history of Pakistan, after getting credible input from agencies, I made OSDs, those highest level officers who were not functioning, had a grey record, and I said, come what may, I will not accept any pressure. I will move forward with a sense of purpose, with a sense of achievement, and make Pakistan find its place in Committee of Nations through hard work and untiring efforts.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. I think you heard on the applause that was very well received. I'm moving now to Anna Marks, a global chair of Deloitte. I think what we also have heard during these 2 days, and I know you, Anna, have been in many of the sessions too, is that we need more collaboration. If we work against each other, it's not productive. And you're seeing this in business context all the time. How can we collaborate better to meet the targets we have set, being sustainability, being inclusion? So I know you have some thoughts on this.
Well, thank you.
And your mic.
I think I would know after watching the previous two speakers and after dealing with remote working for quite some time during the pandemic. Thank you for the question, and thank you for the World Economic Forum and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for convening and hosting this special meeting. It has been a fantastic couple of days, and it has been inspiring to hear the openness, the enthusiasm, the acknowledgement, the optimism, despite the complexities, some of which we've heard just now. And you talk about collaboration and how is collaboration important, particularly when we look at inclusive growth, sustainable growth, growth that means that we can grow in a way that's fair and proportionate across societies, across geographies. And we can't do that without collaboration. And if we just pause on what we mean by collaboration, because actually these meetings are a great forum for debate and discussion and to start to collaborate. But that's very, very different from cooperation. And we hear about cooperation, but really all that is about assigning each other different tasks, working alongside each other, and ensuring that what I do doesn't disrupt what you do. Collaboration is different. Collaboration is convening and creating a common goal, a common vision, and building the activities together and executing those activities together to reach that goal. And that's true collaboration. And given the complexities we're facing globally right now, much of which has been debated and discussed over the last couple of days, it's very easy to see and to feel that there's an increase in invisible and visible barriers to collaboration. And I'd encourage us all to look for where we can collaborate, because without collaborating, we can't achieve our goals of truly inclusive growth. And maybe if I just give one example to bring it to life. If we think about the sustainability aspect, you mentioned sustainability, and we talk about the importance of sustainable aviation fuel. Sustainable aviation fuel could have a significant impact on our ambitions around carbon emission reduction. And the International Air Transport Association talks about sustainable aviation fuel probably contributing around 65% or so of the solution to achieve the net zero goals set out for 2050. It's that important. But it's nascent, it's expensive, it's going to take time to produce the production facilities, the raw materials. If we allow this to continue, and if we operate in silos, we won't achieve what we need to achieve, which is to accelerate and to achieve those goals for net zero ambitions. So what we need is collaboration. We need the agricultural waste producers to think about alternative sources of raw material. We need the jet fuel producers to be aligned with that and think about repurposing and building the production capability and processes. We need the transportation sector to think about how do we transport, what are the logistics that are required around that, complying with regulation and so on. We also need airlines to lean into that. We also need policymakers to ensure that all parties can play their part and that they're incentivized to do so in the right way. We need the funding mechanisms to do it. We need the consumer activity. We need actually associations, trade associations to play their part. The ecosystem goes on. So we need true collaboration in order to build the sustainable aviation fuel that we need to help achieve that net zero goal. So that's just one example. If we're going to get to inclusive growth, it's not about cooperation, it's real collaboration across the ecosystem.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think this is a perfect segue over to you, Minister. Faisal, we had a big contraction of the global economies during COVID. We'll come back to that with Stefan. But no, many countries are back at pre-COVID levels, most countries, and we see that growth is back, not as high as it used to be, but growth is back. How do you, from the Kingdom's side, see the projection now for the coming year? The Kingdom's economy is doing pretty well and has also diversified. 50% of your GDP is now already non-oil related. So how do you look at global economic outlook?
So, thank you, Borge. I believe we view the global economy evolving, but still stuck in a low growth, I'd say, phase, and it's unevenly distributed. If you look, for example, at IMF's recent projection, they've been increased to 3.2, but if you double click on that, you'll see that advanced economies are between 1.6, 1.8% for the coming year, and the US stands out a little bit at 2.7%. If you look at emerging economies, they're a bit higher at 4.2%, driven mainly by India, but also the Middle East and Central Asia. India at 6.5, Middle East, Central Asia at around 4.5% and more. So that's not the growth numbers that we want to continue with. We want to see more global economic growth, and that's why we're convening here. One of the themes is growth, and by that we mean inclusive growth, and how do we get there? We believe there's two things we need to focus on. One, productivity. Productivity has been going down since the global financial crisis at 1%, especially in advanced economies, at 1 percentage point per year. Maybe the US has seen an upward trend recently, but that's still the story. In emerging economies, there are two groups. There's the fast lane, as some experts call it, and the slow lane. The fast lane represents around 3.6 billion people. If they continue at that growth level, they would reach advanced economies level within 25 years, but you're still leaving out 1.4 billion people in the economies that they live in. So productivity needs to see a shift. We need to focus on the tools, the interventions that will help us grow productivity. And if you look at the fast lane countries, most of the growth or most of the performance came from very large investments. We're talking about 20 to 40% of GDP in terms of size. That's large. It's very hard for you to emulate that in emerging economies or most emerging economies. So policies need to be put in place, investments need to be attracted to the right productive sectors so we can see an upward shift in productivity. That brings me to the second point, which is, I'd say, collaboration or fragmentation. A more fragmented world is a lower growth world. That's a fact. And with fragmentation comes a lot of costs. So we might be happy with the growth rates in some areas, but we know that without collaboration, we can't really achieve higher growth rates for the global economy. We've seen trade profiles change. We've seen countries geopolitically at distance from each other. We've seen, despite that, 20% of trade is across these geopolitical lines, and 40% of that is actually in very crucial products that are highly concentrated. So we need to acknowledge that no country or region can be self-sufficient in a very optimal fashion. Every region needs to import at least for 25% of its consumption from other regions. Coming together and acknowledging that fragmentation is not the best solution, and actually thinking about what Anna said in terms of collaboration, putting together solutions to some of the things that are pulling us apart. And as an example, the recent Middle East conflict and the need for us to find a solution for it is just an example. If we succeed in creating, just as an example, peace in the Middle East, finally, and a lasting peace, this will remove many of the headwind in front of global progress and global economic development. So we need to keep in mind productivity and fragmentation.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Minister, and you're so right. There is no countries that are in war or conflict that have even met the Millennium Development Goals or the Sustainable Development Goals. A prerequisite is that you also have peace. I think that's such it's an incredibly important point. Coming to you, Stefan Bancel, Moderna, I think we all know what Moderna is. We had this question, was it Pfizer or Moderna? You got the last vaccine. I still think we remember that. The reason why I'm mentioning this is that during COVID, it was this pandemic, we've also reminded that health is not only a cost. It's also makes sense to invest in health and preparedness. It is a good investment. The cost of inaction far exceeds the cost of action. Before we looked at, oh, the costs are now increasing, maybe we can cut here or here. And how do you see, of course, not only to avoid future pandemics, but also how do you see, as a pharmaceutical company, that these can be investments and part of reviving growth?
Sure. So thank you for having me today. Congratulations to the WEF and to the Kingdom for this great few days, for this special meeting. And it's really exciting to see the change in the Kingdom. I had the chance to come over the last 20 years and to see the dynamism, the optimism, and all the great things happening. Congratulations. So I think too many people, too many policymakers, too many business leaders took healthcare as granted. It was a given. If you take it at a very personal level, if I'm sick, I cannot be a good husband, I cannot be a good father, and also I cannot be a good colleague to my co-workers, and it's true for every one of us. And so health is not a given, and I believe health is never a given. And it's a bit like the environment. That's an analogy I would like to draw here, which I think is important. You know, my wife likes to say, bees don't send invoices. But if we don't have bees anymore, we're all going to be in big trouble. Trees don't send invoices. But if there's no more trees providing oxygen, we're not going to last very, very long. And so I think it's important that we always consider as leaders what is required to enable the prosperity of the people and the growth that is necessary. Just look at long COVID, it is terrible. In the US so far, there has been 16 million people. 16 million people with long COVID, mostly young people in their 20s, their 30s, their 40s. You hear some stories, they are horrible. Somebody who used to be able to jog 5 kilometers a day can barely walk now because the lung damage, which is permanent, is very profound. And it's around the world, young people. 4 million Americans out of job right now because of long COVID. Think about the impact it has on them as people, their families, and on the economy. Think about it as an impact on inflation, just having this talented labor pool not available to create value. You know, a lot of time we talk about healthcare, but I would like to propose that we actually talk about healthcare, but it's not healthcare that we are doing as a society. It's sick care. We are mostly taking care of people that are sick. And if you think about it, we have to really invest much more in prevention. What I think is really exciting today is we are every day learning more and more about how our body works. I believe we are just years away, not decades away, years away from understanding most of the functioning of a human body. That is a miracle in the history of humanity, us on the planet. For hundreds and thousands of years, we had no idea how a body was working. Until recently, we used to bleed people when they were sick, trying to help them, right? So think about the world where we can use that knowledge to help people not get sick. That's how we're going to really help a lot of people across the world, including people, of course, in low-income countries. And I think that's the solution. You know, too many times I talk with public health leaders, and as you say, we talk about vaccine and we talk about cost. Vaccine is one of the best, if not the best, return on invested healthcare dollar. So we should really think about how do we prevent people from getting sick. The world will be much better and all of us can enjoy a great life versus taking care of people who are already sick.
I think that was a very important message, and I will not forget what you said, or your wife said about the bees are not sending invoices or the trees, but they're doing a very important job. And also, what we're doing today is sick care and not health care. How can we also do more preventive?
I was hit by COVID thrice, but my lungs are fine.
So I'm glad, but I thought that number of Americans with 16 million with long COVID, it was a staggering number. But we don't want to be at the end of the panel because I'm seeing the clock is really ticking up there. You can see it, but it tells us that we have to land. But I don't want to end on a negative note either. So I was thinking, Stefan, that I just read that Moderna is working on 3 new vaccines. I think they're at trial with the experimental vaccines against new viruses. I guess that's good.
Yes, we're actually 28 that are in the clinic right now.
Okay.
Some will be approved as early as in the next few weeks. But the thing that excites me the most is what we're doing in cancer. We have amazing data in skin cancer. We're working with many regulators to get these to patients as soon as possible. And I think that because of the progress that the scientific community is making in the basic understanding of cancer, I believe in our lifetime, we're going to see most cancer being able to be taken care of, which will be a wonderful hope for humanity. Wow. As you know, for so many families, we have all been touched by cancer, 2 loved ones. And I think if we could live in a world where cancer is treatable and not a death sentence, that will be a big step forward for mankind.
Yeah. Next decade or in 2 decades?
I'm talking years. Again, I'm talking years, and I'm hoping that potentially as early as next year, we will have the first product on the market for cancer.
Wow, that's really, I think everyone has had someone, friends or family that has been affected. I think this is also a bit of a segue back to you, Minister Faisal, because I think artificial intelligence also will play an important role in the future of healthcare. I guess also sick care, but artificial intelligence can also respond to what you mentioned about decrease productivity. Productivity is really prosperity. When you can increase productivity, you can pay people higher salaries for doing less, or you can produce higher up in the value chain. I think you have an announcement on artificial intelligence to share with us today.
Just as a backdrop, maybe, Borge, and to answer your previous question as well. Under Vision 2030, the Kingdom's economic evolution has been moving very robustly. Our non-oil growth, which is what we're very proud of, in 2022, when the Kingdom was the fastest G20 economy in growth, grew at 5.9%, and that momentum is still continuing till today. The IMF projects our non-oil growth to be 5% this year, 5.1% next year. So this is very important for us. Because of our diversification by design, we're moving away from very productive sectors like oil and petrochems and financial services, which means there is a pressure on our productivity to decline. Since Vision 2030, that decline has slowed down. But we're looking for more ways to improve productivity because we want to become a productivity-led economic growth story, not just a resource-led one. And that has led us to prioritize research, development, and innovation, human capital development outcomes, and investments in technology. More recently, focusing on artificial intelligence as well. As a user, the government is one of the most active governments in terms of looking at a lot of policy areas and problems and trying to answer them, but also the private sector, as an investor, but also as a platform for others to participate in. And because of that, and because of what we said earlier, the importance of this kind of technology being inclusive. If it's inclusive, this means it can create growth avenues in the lesser developed countries, if we focus on inclusivity. So we're very proud to be joining the AI Global Alliance that's been launched by the World Economic Forum. The Kingdom will be joining this alliance as of now. And we're also very much excited about working with the Forum on this new initiative called Inclusive AI for Growth and Development. That's one way the Kingdom will push the needle on the need for global governance when it comes to artificial intelligence, but also making sure this technology is inclusive for optimal global growth outcomes.
Bravo.
No, thank you. Thank you very much, and I think we then will be working together to make sure that AI can work in the interest of humankind. The World Economic Forum is a Swiss-based international organization, so I learned when I started at the forum that you have to be on time. It's the only place is in Switzerland if they start a meeting before the time. If you're arriving at 5 and the meeting was supposed to be at 5 and there were critical mass, they would just have started. And I see there is 0 time left there. But I also felt the panel was so good, I would have liked to continue. But I learned from being a former speechwriter that you should end when people still want you to continue, because that's mainly not the case when it comes to politicians. You want them to land. So I think this panel has been a great panel. I would also like to use this unique opportunity when we are at the end of this summit, the special meeting that has meant a lot to the World Economic Forum. It's our first time in the Kingdom in our 55 years history. It's incredible the changes that are taking place here. Also the cooperation with the Kingdom, with Minister Faisal, but I see also many of the other ministers that we work so closely with, and also under the patronage of His Royal Highness the Crown Prince, has been incredible. So we feel that this has been a highlight in a world where we need, as Anna also said, to collaborate. More dialogue is needed, and we have had 92 different nationalities, nations represented here. I would also like to use this opportunity to thank my teams at the World Economic Forum, together with Minister Faisal. I think they have not really slept that much during the last weeks, and the 2 last nights, I think there has been no sleep. but they're very committed. I'm very thankful for putting all this together, and I think we all aspire, if we are re-invited, to come back to the kingdom. I would like then to introduce for closing remarks my colleague, our director for Middle East and North Africa, Maroon Kairouz. Maroon, thank you to you and your team and the teams for the incredible job.
Thank you, Borge, for your leadership. Esteemed panelists, thank you. And first and foremost, thank all of you for your devoted engagement during the past couple of days for this first meeting in Saudi Arabia, as you said, Borge. The meeting has taken place at a crucial time for the region and for the world against a backdrop of geopolitical fragility. So it was incredibly important that we hold it at this time. At the closing of this meeting, I just want to end on a positive note, as you were saying, and mention some of the concrete outcomes or key discussions that took place during the course of the meeting. First of all, we hosted important dialogues on the geopolitical situation in the region to build trust between key regional and international actors and make progress towards peace against, again, a complicated geopolitical backdrop. Another example is we held similar dialogues with top government officials from key emerging economies, including Malaysia, Turkey, and Mexico, which are pivotal in the global supply on global supply chains in the current geo-economic landscape. In addition, Saudi Arabia and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation pledged to work together to help protect 370 million children annually from polio. A new forum report was launched that explores how artificial intelligence could revolutionize education systems for educators and students alike, while a new framework will chart a path for governments and employers to expand a global digital workforce. We signed an agreement, as in the World Economic Forum, signed an agreement with the Saudi Space Agency to launch a Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution to ensure that the fast-growing space industry contributes to sustainable economic development. As was just announced by Minister Faisal, Saudi Arabia will join the forum's AI Governance Alliance on Inclusive AI for Growth and Development to identify challenges and solutions to global AI access. On cybersecurity, we published a report on the guiding principles to enhance cyber resilience in manufacturing. Together, we explored policy tools that can scale up the use of clean energy solutions while ensuring equitable growth. For instance, our Global Future Council on the Energy Transition released a report detailing the geopolitical, environment, and economic implications of shifting from fossil fuels to critical minerals. The leaders for Sustainable MENA, a community of CEOs from the region, met to strengthen their corporate climate commitments and to help their suppliers down the supply chain to decarbonize. Our innovators from Uplink launched with the Saudi Minister of Energy and the Ministry of Economy a new circular carbon economy initiative to source startups working on cutting-edge solutions for reducing, reusing, recycling, and removing carbon from the atmosphere. Once again, please allow me to thank all of you for your devoted engagement, to thank Minister Faisal and his team for the great collaboration, and a big thank you to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for hosting us here. Have a great rest of the day, everyone.
रियाज में आलमी इक़्तिसादी फोरम के ख़ुसूसी इजलास का इख्तितामी सेशन। वज़ीर-ए-आज़म मोहम्मद शहबाज शरीफ ने इस इख्तितामी सेशन में शिरकत की, इजहार ख्याल भी किया। वज़ीर-ए-आज़म कहते हैं